Our guest this week on Veterans Chronicles is Daniel Mehdi. He's a Marine Corps veteran of the First Gulf War. He also served as a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration. He is now program manager for the Travis Manion Foundation, and we're thrilled to have him in studio today. Dan, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with the beginning of your story. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in New York City, in Manhattan. I started grade school in the Bronx, and then I moved to Rockland County, New York.
And how was the suburbs compared to the city?
It was quite a different experience. It was in New York City the time when nobody wanted to live in New York City. So I was happy to be in the suburbs at the time.
When did you get interested in the service, and when did you ultimately join the Marines?
I was interested in the service. I found out about it when I was in college, about the Marine Corps commissioning program.
And when did you officially enlist?
I went through training during college.
Right.
I started back in 1986 as my first summer,
Okay.
and I was actually commissioned when I graduated from college in 1989.
And what happened once you graduated from college? Where did they send you?
They sent me to the basic school in Quantico, Virginia, and then I completed infantry officer course, and my first assignment was Hawaii with the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines.
What was the officer training like? We always hear the horror stories of the enlisted man boot camp down at Parris Island, so what's it like for officers?
I wouldn't say it was terribly bad. It was an enjoyable experience. It was long. It was 6 months long to actually go through the basic school, and then the infantry officer course was another 3 months.
And so once you were in Hawaii, what was your responsibility?
I was assigned to the Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines. I was a rifle platoon commander.
And what did that consist of during that particular time in Hawaii? Was it mainly training? Did you get deployed anywhere from there?
I actually was deployed 2 weeks after I arrived to Hawaii. It was right at the time Saddam invaded Kuwait. As soon as I got to Hawaii, they told me not to unpack my bags, and 2 weeks later I was in the Persian Gulf for 11 months.
Wow. What was the buildup like in Desert Storm, or Desert Shield, I guess, first? What were you doing during the lead up to the war?
We were in the desert doing a lot of training, primarily at nighttime. So it was mainly 6 months of just actively training, and particularly at night because of the heat in the desert.
Describe for us what happened once it was clear that the hostilities were going to happen. Where were you and what were you doing?
So we were fairly close to the border of Kuwait and, Saudi Arabia. And as the hostilities commenced, a few days later after the hostilities commenced, we crossed over into Kuwait, and we helped secure Kuwait International Airport and conducted patrolling operations in that area.
What was the mindset for you and the guys around you at that time? Because obviously it was the first major combat since Vietnam, and there was a lot of concern after some of the problems that happened in Vietnam about how long this would take and how decisive the American force would be, and obviously it didn't take long and the force was decisive. So explain how you approached all that.
Sure. It was quite a surprise for me, just even because arriving to Hawaii, I had no idea that 2 weeks later I'd actually be in the Persian Gulf. We've always heard that you have to be prepared as soon as you leave the school environment or training that you might be in a combat type environment. But I don't think any of us were really envisioning that at the time. And it was a long buildup, and it was long days in the desert, and there was a lot of apprehension. We really didn't know what to expect. It was a time when the news wasn't what it was today in terms of all the information coming in, no internet. So we were out in the middle of the desert training a lot and really not knowing what to expect. It came as a big surprise, and thankfully how quickly it actually did end.
We'll be talking about leadership quite a bit later when we talk about your work with the Travis Manion Foundation. What struck you, what stuck out to you about the leadership immediately above you or all the way up to General Schwarzkopf and beyond, Colin Powell, for example, about their leadership during that time?
Well, I think we had a very calming influence in our assistant division commander, General Droughty, who was a very servant-type leadership. He had a servant-type leadership mentality, and I think that had a good basis with the troops, and it helped to calm us, gave us speeches to tell us, here's what you may expect. We expected a certain level of casualties going into Kuwait, and thankfully that never came to pass. But I learned a lot of it was just reassuring our young Marines because they were young, 19, 20 years old, really not knowing what to expect, and we just concentrated on doing our jobs every day.
Do you remember what the general reaction was when you found out that it was over that quickly?
I remember exactly where I was. I was at Kuwait International Airport. At first we thought it was a rumor, and we were just conducting patrolling operations, and it came across on the radio that hostilities had ceased. And they were playing Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World" on the intercom throughout the airport. It's a moment I'll never forget.
Fantastic. So how long did you stay there before heading back home or somewhere else?
I came home for a short break for about 6 weeks, and then I went back to the Persian Gulf with another particular unit. So I spent about 11 months in the Gulf altogether. And after that, we did a deployment to Okinawa and to the Philippines also.
Okay. And that pretty much wrapped up your time on active duty?
It did, yes.
What led you to leave the Corps at that point?
I've asked myself that quite a bit over the years. I'm not quite sure I knew why I left at that particular time. I think I was just ready for a new challenge in life. It was a great challenge. I often look at it as the highlight of my life in terms of the learning and the amount of responsibility and experience that I gained as a young Marine officer. And I carry those lessons with me for the rest of my life.
How soon did you then get involved with the DEA?
It took me quite a while. I applied to DEA and other federal law enforcement agencies, and it just so happened at the time I was leaving the Marine Corps that there was a hiring freeze in the government, and it took me about 3 years till I was actually able to get into the DEA. I got in with the Border Patrol first. I was a Border Patrol agent in San Diego, California for 2 years before I got in with DEA.
And you're a special agent there. What were some of the major roles or missions you were focused on?
So as a DEA special agent, we're tasked with prosecuting and investigating and identifying major cartels operating throughout the world, those that violate Title 21 of the Controlled Substances Act.
And I know people have a general sense of how massive and how nefarious the drug trade is, but for someone who's seen it on the inside, what should people know about it?
Well, just the destruction that's out there. I think a lot of times people don't realize the toll it takes on families. I would go into people's homes and we would be carrying out search warrants and arrest warrants, and often there were children there. Children were at risk, and I often don't think that people realize that, for the financial gain that they may have for short term, I don't think they're thinking about the long-term consequences.
Were you on interdiction much in terms of specifically fronting the cartels or some of their mules as they were crossing the border? Were you more dealing with Americans on the receiving end of the drugs?
Well, I had a varied career. So I started in San Diego, and my first assignment was in Eagle Pass, Texas. So I went out there, and there was a lot of interdiction type work out there. A lot of people just crossing the border, backpacking drugs such as marijuana. I also worked in San Juan, Puerto Rico for quite a while, which I got to work major Colombian cartels. I got to travel a lot, but I spent the bulk of my career in Phoenix, Arizona. So.
How do you think your military career helped prepare you for that?
I think just the sense of accountability and initiative and personal excellence that you learn in the military. As a DEA special agent, to be successful, you have to take a lot of initiative. You basically plan your own work. And that's things that I learned in the military. Stepping up when you're in charge, be in charge, and just planning my own work.
When thinking about the firepower of some of these cartels, when you're interdicting them directly, did it remind you of almost small arms fire on a military level, given what they sometimes have in their arsenal in order to protect their product?
Well, I think certainly you can say it's analogous in terms of the firepower that they do carry. Automatic weapons often. We almost always go into somebody's home to conduct a search warrant, arrest warrant, be a lot of weapons in the homes. So that then the violence potential was always there. So there were similarities between the two worlds.
What struck you most about dealing with some of these really bad actors in the drug trade once you did have them in custody?
I think for most of them, just the no respect for human life, that it's all about financial gain.
Did you feel like there was progress being made in the drug war? Is it such a big job that it's sometimes hard to tell when you're focusing on your specific mission?
Well, I think we all go into it with the feeling that we are making a difference, and the dedicated men and women of the DEA are doing that. And it's difficult because you do see the continual problems that we do have, and today that there's an opioid epidemic that's occurring in this country, and I'm not sure how many people really know the scope of what's going on out there.
Dan, let's talk about the Travis Manion Foundation now. Obviously, after, I believe, more than 20 years with the DEA, you became affiliated with the Travis Manion Foundation. How did you first learn about it?
Well, it was interesting. It was kind of a fluke set of circumstances. I was instructing at the DEA Academy, and I was helping the FBI out with the leadership course they were running for youth, and I saw their schedule, and it they had on there a opportunity to see a Character Does Matter presentation put on by the Travis Manion Foundation. I had no idea what the Travis Manion Foundation was at the time. I went and watched the presentation, and I fell in love at first kind of hearing, I guess, of those 5 simple and powerful words that Travis spoke before he went on his final deployment to Fallujah, Iraq, and those words were, "If not me, then who?" And I started becoming involved as a volunteer from that point forward until I retired with DEA after almost 21 years of service.
Tell our listeners a little bit more about Travis. He was tragically killed in Anbar province. What should people know about his story in particular before we talk about the work of the foundation?
Know about his story. This is all about carrying on Travis's motto of "If not me, then who," and it's about how he lived his life on an everyday basis. Not so much, how he died or what he did for a living, but just throughout his life, from the time there are examples from when he was 12 years old, how he stood up, he had moral courage, he had integrity, and that's what we try to impart with the youth of today, to inspire them and to get them to go out and do acts of good in this world and make a difference.
What are some of the key principles to the character formation that you do?
Sure. So we have a presentation where it's called the Character Does Matter program, and we talk to kids about pillars of character, mainly moral courage, integrity, leadership, and service. And we have veterans and families of fallen heroes, those Gold Star family members that primarily act as our ambassadors and volunteers that go out there and give these conversations and have these talks with the 14 to 20-year-olds. So they understand the importance of having a life of good character and why it's important, whether they're 14 years old or 50 years old.
Dan, we'll stop right there. We'll come right back for our next segment on Veterans Chronicles. We are back on Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Corumbus. Thanks for being with us. Honored to be joined today by Daniel Mehdi. He is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and he's program director for the Travis Manion Foundation. We've talked about his military service. We've talked about his 20-plus years as a special agent with the DEA, and now we've begun explaining how he got affiliated with the Travis Manion Foundation. So, Dan, let's talk about the genesis of the foundation itself. We talked a little bit about Travis directly before the break. How did the foundation actually get started and start growing?
Sure. Well, Travis is the namesake of the foundation, but the inspiration for the foundation is also Brendan Looney. So Brendan and Travis went to the Naval Academy together. They were roommates and best friends. They graduated in 2004. Travis became the Marine officer, went to Iraq. Before his second deployment, somebody was worried about him and made him an offer to do something where he wouldn't have to go to the deployment. And Travis said those 5 words of, "If not me, then who?" If I don't do it, then somebody else lesser trained is going to have to go. On April 29, 2007, he was killed by an enemy sniper while rushing to help his comrades during an ambush. Brendan became a Navy SEAL, and he was tragically killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan in 2010. So all of our work both of them are our inspiration to go out and empower veterans and families of the fallen to develop character in future generations. And what we're really trying to do, the work to honor the way that both of these men live their lives and others who've given their life during the service. And Brendan was tragically killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan in 2010. Travis's mother, Janet, was the driving force behind starting the foundation. And what it was at first, she was receiving donations and really just giving them to other veteran service organizations to help them out. We had one office at the time of the genesis of the organization in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is still our headquarters. And the last few years we've grown to, we've just opened up our 8th office. So we're now in Doylestown, in Philadelphia, in San Diego, in Houston, Texas, Washington, D.C., Raleigh, North Carolina, Chicago opened up recently, and Atlanta opens up in July, and we're also hoping to open up a Baltimore office in the very near future. So we've had rapid growth. We've impacted approximately 190,000 young adults, middle school and high school age children, since the time of the inception 10 years ago of this foundation. And our work is primarily, our programming is to inspire and activate youth and to create communities. And again, we're going out and talking to the young adults about moral courage, integrity, leadership, and service. And the reason why our primary ambassadors or volunteers are veterans and families of the fallen is because we see them as civic assets. The veterans, all the things that they've learned in the military, all these leadership and character lessons that they've developed from that service, they are able to impart and give back to our youth. And it gives them a sense of purpose, because we have a lot of people in the military today who take off the uniform and have lost that sense of purpose, that sense of tribe. And they're looking for that again, a way to get involved in their communities and feel engaged and to be in that flow and to give back, just like they did when they served in uniform. And the same thing with families of the fallen that have been through a lot, their grief, they're very resilient, and now they're going out and they're giving back, and they're honoring their loved ones, and at the same time helping our communities. So Travis Manion Foundation is all about building communities. We all understand that we're living in a divisive times. We want to be positive about everything, and we want to make sure everybody's doing their small part to make this a better world.
There's a lot of good organizations out there, but very few of them grow and have the type of intense loyalty that the Travis Manion Foundation was. And you mentioned all the key ingredients that anyone would naturally be attracted to, bringing out people who have had amazing careers and can talk about their time in the service, building and reaching out to young people who so desperately need good mentors and role models and advice and encouragement, and building these principles. So this might be hard to pinpoint, but what do you think it is about this foundation that has led to such amazing growth and influence as compared to others who might have similar goals?
I think one thing we talk about and is thriving, because we found a way with the Character Does Matter program, whether it be the Character Does Matter actual presentation to the 14 and 20-year-olds or a character and leadership course. This is a great way for veterans and families of the fallen to go out and actively see their influence having a positive effect on young adults. I think the core values really ring out with the Travis Manion Foundation too, and people really sense what we're all about, and that's our passion, our integrity, our servant leadership mentality, our gratitude, resiliency, and personal excellence. And I think that rings through everything that we do at the foundation. And I think when the first time I heard the "If not me, then who" message, it really rang a bell with me, or it really hit home with me, because it reminded me of my own "If not me, then who" moment in 2004, when I was making a decision whether or not to go to Afghanistan with DEA. So it's just a simple but powerful message, and I think as people get involved, it gives them a way to tangibly give back and see the impact that these young adults, many today, don't have role models, and that's thriving. That's, even though you can have a career and you might have a solid job, but you're still looking for something more. And this is a way, I believe, and I think those that get involved with the Travis Manion Foundation see that. This is a way to thrive and really be engaged in your life, not just going through the motions.
We'll mention this again later on in the discussion, but as we head into break, where can folks learn more about the Travis Manion Foundation?
So you can go to our website, travismanion.org. We also, locally in this area, we're on Facebook and social media. Travis Manion Foundation Mid-Atlantic Spartan Facebook page is a terrific way for those in this area to follow what we're doing on an almost daily basis.
Well, we'll talk much more about the foundation and the great work that it does when we come back on Veterans Chronicles. Welcome back to Veterans Chronicles on the Radio America Network. Honored to be joined in studio today by Dan Mehdi. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He is also a veteran of the DEA, and now he's program director at the Travis Manion Foundation, which we're going to continue talking about here for the rest of the program. And Dan, you talked about the principles. We've talked about how the foundation has grown over time. What do you do on a day-to-day basis working for them?
So I am the Mid-Atlantic Program Manager, so I cover Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, and Kentucky. My primary responsibilities are to implement our programming, the Character Does Matter programming, to expand our programs, and to primarily recruit our ambassador base, our volunteers, to find those veterans and families of the fallen who will act as our character ambassadors, and then to train them on how to actually go out and deliver our programs. So I spend a lot of my time just going to different organizations, whether it be veteran service organizations, student groups, corporate entities, or government agencies, talking about the work that we do at the Travis Manion Foundation, so people become more aware of the work and the impact that we're having, not only here, but nationwide.
You've got a pretty veteran-rich environment in your region, don't you?
We do.
So how do you get in touch with the opportunity to make these presentations? Do you work a lot with schools, other youth organizations? How do you make those connections?
Sure. We talk to different groups, and when we go out and do the presentations, as long as it's in that 14 to 20 age range, it could be to schools, it could be to church groups, civic groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, law enforcement exploring. It runs the gamut. So we're talking to different schools. We're also talking to different groups that have large veteran populations to get them involved, to come out, and we only ask that they do this once or twice a year if they're going to go out and actually do a presentation.
What kind of training is required, whether it's to be a presenter or serve some other way with the foundation?
Sure. So you come in for a training, and we also have some webinars for those who aren't in one of the 7 or 8 cities that we're currently in. You come in and we tell you the history of TMF, the overview, how we got started, our programming, our impact, and then we actually show them the presentation, how to build out that presentation for that 35 to 40 minutes that they would be in front of a group of young adults to do that. And then we ask people that want to go to the presentation route to come back and actually give us a practice presentation, whether that's in person or they can do it via a video link to do that.
Is there much of a screening process, or once you know that these people have had honorable service to the military, that you generally consider them to be good choices to be presenters?
Sure. We absolutely do have a background process, so we do conduct background checks on everyone to ensure that, particularly because we're going in and dealing with young adults. So
yeah, so you got to make sure you're giving the right message.
Right, exactly. Right.
You also have a mentorship program. How is that structured, and how do people get involved
Sure.
with that?
We call it our character and leadership course, and what that is veterans mentoring youth. So we do it in different formats. Sometimes it's an extended version, a 10-week program, 1 day a week, and like an after-school type program. And other times we often use the 1-day format. And what we're doing is we're experiential learning, fun games, interactive activities for the young adults, but with all the purpose of leadership and character development. Each lesson or each day that we teach this course is specifically targeting a leadership issue or a character building type issue. So we have the ethical decision making exercises. We have things that make the students or the young adults collaborate and work as a team to work towards a common goal.
Let's talk about the benefits of this from both sides of the equation. First of all, for the veterans who get involved, what kind of feedback do you get from them about what it means to them to engage with these young people and hopefully have a positive influence on them?
Well, I think veterans find that since they've learned all these lessons and character development issues as they've gone on, by giving back, they feel that sense of purpose again that they had when they were in uniform. So, and it's terrific when a young adult will come up to you and say, you're making a positive difference in my life. I've made some of the students don't have role models. About 1 in 3 young adults today don't have role models. So this is a way when somebody comes up to you and says, you've made a difference in my life, or you go and give a presentation and they email you several months later to say, I'm conducting a service project based on what I saw, that if not me, then who message. I think that gives you a sense of gratification that you're giving back and that we're ensuring that the next generation is going to carry on successfully.
You talked about the thirst of the young people for good role models, with a third of them, I think you said, don't really have that in their lives, whether it's an absentee father or perhaps someone who's passed away in some way. Talk about the feedback you've gotten from the kids as well, both in terms of how much they appreciate this and what they've gotten out of it.
Sure. Well, we recently highlighted stories of impact and stories of legacy that have come back to us. And we've asked, the students, what do you want to be remembered for? And then they've come back to us in social media and said, this is how I'm thriving. I took a lot out of this program. I'm thinking of one particular case where a young adult sent me a letter and he said how it's helped him to overcome obstacles. When they find resistance in their lives and they're learning to push through that, and that something worth achieving is hard work. So I think what they're learning in these programs, whether it's from the presentation or whether it's through the character and leadership course, they're finding out how to be resilient is a big part of leadership also.
Is it a major adjustment for them to have such not only an involved male role model in their lives, but one that can instill these types of values in them?
I think there's a certain segment of the population that falls within that, certainly. Yeah.
So in terms of the the message these kids take away from this? Is there any sort of encouragement for them to consider military service, or even if not, do they tend to have a more favorable consideration towards the military based on this experience?
Well, when we go out to the schools or wherever we present, we're clear that this is not any of our program is not a military recruitment tool, but we do use examples of fallen service members to have students go out and do service projects in the name of somebody who has passed away since 9/11 and is not here anymore. So I think they come away with a better understanding at some level of the good character and leadership issues that people in the military have exemplified throughout their lives.
The foundation's been around for 10 years, so it might be a little early to ask this question, but given the age range you're talking about, if somebody was towards the later age range there, maybe 19 or 20 when you started, do you find them circling back around and becoming mentors at any point because of what experience they've had in the foundation, or is it a little bit early in the process to see that?
We actually did have one particular case. There was a young man we highlighted at our national gala last December who did something like that, was exposed to programming through Travis Manion Foundation, and has come back to help us in terms of mentoring other young adults. So we have had that particular case already.
What's the impact on you personally, or the other people that you work with, that you get to deal with these veterans and their life stories, as well as seeing what's happening in the lives of these young people?
Well, I think I love the Veteran Transition Workshop because I'm helping veterans to avoid what happened to me when I took off the military uniform. When I ran into that roadblock where there was a hiring freeze for 3 years, and I hadn't really considered what my strengths and passions were, and I didn't have a plan B as to what I was going to do for a living. So I'm grateful that I'm able to help them recognize that during those workshops, because our workshops focus on helping those veterans identify what their strengths and passions are. That first step of the puzzle before they take a job where they may leave within a year or two and they're not happy. My leadership mentality or philosophy, because I'm extremely grateful for everything I've gotten in life from my parents, from the lessons I learned from the military and DEA, and just throughout my life, and then I have a give not get mentality. I'd rather be known for somebody who gives than gets something. So I feel that sense of responsibility because I have gotten so much in my life. I've had so many opportunities that it's my responsibility to give back and to also highlight the service of others who are not here anymore and to keep their strong character and legacies going.
How much of an emphasis is there on the people who lead this organization to embody those qualities? Because there, of course, have been other organizations that have run into ethical problems. I won't name them now, but you can probably guess at least one of them. But the Travis Manion Foundation has never seen that type of questioning or scandal. The reputation has been very, very good. So how do you focus and make sure that while you're teaching these principles and encouraging these principles, that you're also running the organization based on these principles?
Well, the one thing when I got involved with the organization, as a volunteer and also as a staff member, is the quality of persons that are involved with this organization. There are only 36 of us in the entire country. And again, I would emphasize that everyone I've been associated with in this organization embodies those values of passion, integrity, servant leadership, gratitude, resiliency, and personal excellence and accountability. And I think everyone is just so dedicated to the mission, and we feel the responsibility of going out there and representing this organization in a positive light. And you know, every day I walk into my office, there's a photograph of Travis and Brendan sitting with their arms around one another that's over my left shoulder. So I feel like they're sitting on my shoulder, you know, watching me every day what I'm doing. And I feel that sense of responsibility to go out there and represent this entire organization in the best manner that I possibly can.
You mentioned how this program is a great help for veterans making the transition away from their time in uniform, and how you wish it had been around at the time you were making your transition from military to civilian life. You mentioned the workshops. Talk a little bit more about the workshops, how those are structured, how intense they are, and how you figure out which veteran is best over here and best over here.
Sure. So they're run on a quarterly basis. They're free to the veterans, and they're basically in three parts. As I was saying earlier, we're not focusing so much on hard skills of interviewing and resume writing, but helping the veterans identify that first piece of the puzzle in their journey after they take off the uniform, what their strengths and passions are, what they're good at, what they should really be doing as they continue on their journey. The second part of it is we bring in other veteran service organizations. We're not territorial with our veterans that get involved with us. We want them to be exposed to the full range of services that are out there. A lot of great veteran service organizations doing other things different from the Travis Manion Foundation. We want them to be aware of all that. And the third piece is it's a networking piece where we bring in speakers from who are our veterans that are in different particular career fields. I used to talk about federal law enforcement, others from IT or healthcare or real estate, and they talk about how what they learned in the military has helped them in their careers. And then we have a social hour, and it's networking. So if somebody's interested in this particular field, here's a veteran who's already out there doing that same type of work, and they get to discuss that together.
A fairly tough economic environment for the most part over the last several years. So has this, have you gotten a lot of feedback from the veterans that this sort of networking and training has really helped them get a leg up, as well as their service resume in getting the jobs that they'd like to?
Well, I think of one, for example, I won't name the company, but he met one of the veterans at the networking event at the Veteran Transition Workshop. He wound up getting an internship this summer with a major consulting firm. So I've seen it firsthand, and it's absolutely helping them out. And I think the more transition programs they go through, they go through one in the military, but they come out and here's another one tackling a different piece of the puzzle for them. And I think that's a force multiplier for them.
There's so many different great layers to this, both in terms of helping the veterans transition to civilian life, getting the veterans involved with working with kids and promoting the values of good leadership and good character. So you have so many irons in the fire. Are there other ideas, other programs that are on the front burner that eventually will be implemented, or is it just a matter of kind of fine-tuning and focusing on what's already working? Well,
I think we constantly evaluate how our programming is working, and we're a membership organization. We have 190,000 people we've affected. We have 90,000 actual members that we're in contact with. But I think we won't be stagnant. I think we think all the time about how we're going to improve our programming. But I know, if not me, then who, those 5 simple and powerful words are always going to be central to what we're doing.
Let's talk about the influences of character in your own life. How much did the Corps, first of all, play a role in shaping your worldview and your outlook? And then at the same time, how much did your time with the foundation just in the past couple of years do that?
Sure. I think what I learned as a Marine officer that's really helped me throughout my entire personal and professional life was that you're a servant leader, that it's not about being a positional leader. It's about taking care of your people, ensuring their welfare, and being sincere about developing those that are under you. I think before you become a leader, it's about developing yourself. And then once you become a leader, it's about developing other people. So that's one thing I've carried on throughout my time in the Marine Corps, throughout DEA, when I was an instructor at the academy. And it's something I incorporate now. I feel that it's my responsibility to help develop our young generation.
What are you most proud of? Let's start, first of all, with your time in uniform, but then feel free to progress to DEA or your time with the foundation.
Sure. I think I'm most proud of the fact that I took a sincere interest in my men, and that was always my focus when I was a Marine officer. I recently was invited to one of my young Marines 25 years ago, invited me last year to his retirement as a Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps, the highest enlisted level. And he contacted me. I hadn't spoken with him in 25 years, and he told me how much of an impact my leadership had made to him. And I didn't realize that, and that was fantastic to realize that later on, that sometimes we don't realize the impact that we have on people.
Real quickly as we close, Dan, just remind folks where they can learn more about the Travis Manion Foundation and how they can get involved if they wish to do so.
Sure. I think the easiest way is to go to our nationwide website, www.travismanion.org. If they want to see something specific to a region where they live in, for example, the ambassador trainings, those are broken down per region. So I believe that's probably the easiest way to find out about us.
Find it all at travismanion.org. Dan, thanks very much for your service. Thanks for the great work that you and the foundation do, and thanks for your time with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Daniel Mehdi is a Marine Corps veteran. He's also a veteran special agent of the Drug Enforcement Administration, and he is a program manager for the Travis Manion Foundation. Again, travismanion.org. I'm Greg Columbus. This is Veterans Chronicles.